I want to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody here. It's been a day where we've spent most of the time together, council, and so it culminates in a regular council meeting tonight where we have a number of things on the agenda. But before we move along on the agenda, we do want to ask Councillor Funk to bring the opening, please. So Councillor Funk, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This weekend, as Canadians, we celebrated our 150th birthday. And we celebrated in, well, everyone's found a different place to celebrate it. Like there were all kind of venues, and this year we decided to spend our Canada Day at our trailer site, at the like the campground where we have our trailer site. And so I'll just tell you a little bit about it. It started at 5:30 in the afternoon with a pork roast. And I'm thinking, like the whole time I'm thinking, this is going to be amazing because I've never been at an event that didn't go bad. Like it always goes good if it starts to go 200 pounds of smoked pork, right? So we started with that. And then after that, it was like a big carnival. There were three-legged race, there was all kinds of relays, there were contests, there was tattoos and face painting, and kids were judged for how they looked. It was really, really neat. But one of the best parts of the evening was when we went into this shelter and we had karaoke night. Trust me, I didn't sing, not once. But there was a group of people from Winnipeg, and they were Filipino. And they just took over this karaoke night. And it actually, like the shelter kind of felt like the Filipino Cultural Society, because they just took over and they were dancing and they were on the ground rolling around, and they did stuff I didn't even understand. But it got me thinking about how we're immigrants, and it got me thinking about one immigrant I know, and Jacob and Agatha Funk. In 1872 to 1874, they immigrated from Russia. And they moved to a place called Gradenfield, just west of Grantham. In 1875, they had Abram T. Funk. That is my great-grandpa, and he was the first Funk-born Canadian child. They grew up and they worked hard. They cleared land, they farmed, they started businesses, and they built our province with other immigrants to where it is today. And it just hit me as I'm watching the Filipino people and how they were just celebrating with us our holiday, and they're celebrating with us how they have become one of us. And our area will always be known for immigration, and that's a good thing. And as we welcome people that immigrate into our city, our workplaces, our churches, and our homes. We share our resources with them, our values, and our faith. As we invite others to our country of Canada becomes strong. But when we invite them to our community, we invite them to Steinbach becomes strong. And I hope that for always and all time, Steinbach will always have an attitude of immigration, that we will always be building our community together with others.
Thank you, Councillor Funk. On a Canada Day weekend and week like this, that's very appropriate. I appreciate those words. Thank you. All right, we do have the agenda in front of us. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Seaman, second by Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have the minutes in front of us that you've all had a chance to review of June 20th. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Swagstra, moved by Councillor Funk. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? There's no business arising from the minutes. We are at 7:35, so we'll move into the public hearing process. We'll move to 6A, the Variation V-2017, number 10. This is 8387 Chrysler Gate. Starting on page 4 for council members. This is a public hearing, so Mr. Workington, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is an application for variance file V-2017-10, property at 8387 Chrysler Gate. Owner of the property is 552-8471 Manitoba, Inc. The applicant for the variance is Mackenzie Rothwell. Purpose of the variance is to allow a rear yard setback of 17 feet, whereas the RMD residential medium density zone requires a minimum rear yard setback of 25 feet. Purpose of the application is the applicant is proposing to develop a multifamily property on the subject parcel with a configuration that requires the variance. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been completed. There are no registered objections on file. With respect to this particular property, it was the subject of a rezoning approximately 2 to 3 years ago. Therefore, a development agreement already exists on site. It doesn't appear that even though there is a fairly significant variance request for the rear yard, the neighboring property is the Steinbach Regional School, and it doesn't appear there will be a negative impact on that particular property. Therefore, administration recommends that subject to any further information at the public hearing, council approve the variance request.
All right, thank you. We do have the applicant here today. Does the applicant wish to speak? Please state your name and your address. We'll go from there.
Tim Giesbrecht, representing Mackenzie Rothwell, 535 Henry Place. Good evening, Mr. Mayor Gertzen and Council. I am Tim Giesbrecht, representing Mackenzie Rothwell in regards to Variance Order V-2017-10. Originally, we intended on the construction of a 24-unit multi-story complex on this property. Upon further consideration and current market situation, we have reconsidered our plan and intend to construct 4 bi-level 4-plex units on the subject property. The purpose of the variance is to create an aesthetically pleasing environment with equal green space and separation for the neighboring tenants. Mackenzie Rothwell has consulted the affected neighbor prior to approaching council to review our plan, to which we received no objection, only support. I would like to thank council for your time and would be pleased to answer any further questions from council.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anyone here wishing to object or have any questions on this file? Anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? Third time. Anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Funk?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Fair. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think this is a pretty good use of the land. It's a bigger lot, but it's good use. There's 16 units going to be on there. And I think that the variance is also very straightforward, given the fact that there will be the school behind them at all times, that they will have green space. It's not necessary to have it on their yard. And they've already reduced it from 24 to 16. So I think it's just the next step is to just approve.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Fair? Anything further from council? Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak in favor as well. Appreciate the fact that it's was originally intention was a 3-story. Now it's a 2-story. I think that fits well into that area as well. And as stated earlier, because of the layout and its proximity to the school and other areas, I think it fits very well in that area.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? In closing? All right. Council, obviously we have in front of us a variation for the rear yard, and there is a specific reason the applicant gave, and that is due to aesthetics and changing the number of units. I think there is obviously an appropriate use of this space, and it's appropriate to give the variation. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll move to 6B, the local improvement plan. This is 2017-01. This is on page 13 for council members. I'll close the public hearing, close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workentine, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is a public hearing to introduce the city's local improvement plan 2017-01 and also local improvement bylaw 2085. For purposes of a supplementary water supply system project being proposed for later this year and into 2018. With respect to the public notice, the requirements are listed under the Municipal Act as far as a direct notice to all affected potential taxpayers. That notice has been completed. With respect to the project itself, the City of Steinbach has been in the process of proceeding with design and engineering work for this particular project, with the expected total costs of this facility to total approximately $11 million. The total debt to be created under this local improvement plan will be $5.375 million, as is provided in the attached local improvement plan details. With respect to the balance of the funding, the City of Steinbach is anticipating that it will be qualifying for both federal and provincial infrastructure grants to make up the balance of the project. With respect to that, Council may proceed to give this particular bylaw and plan first and second reading, at which time the City will submit this plan to the Manitoba Municipal Board for further review and approval. I would like to point out and bring to Council's attention there were two notices of objection received for this particular file. One was received in writing, for which you received a copy in your mail bins just this evening. The second was actually filed verbally with administration. However, we will be providing that contact information to the Municipal Board as well. Recommendation is that City Council give this bylaw first and second reading to be able to allow it to proceed.
Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to object or have any questions on this file? Anyone here wishing to object? Okay, please take the podium, state your name and your address, please.
My name's Timothy McAllister. I live at 121 Giesbrecht Street. And I just want to ask a question about the City of Steinbach borrowing $5+ million for this project, when there is $5 million in a reserve fund that has recently become open because the June 30th, 2017 date has expired for the Performing Arts Center.
Thank you. I'll answer that question, and that is that the funds for the Performing Arts Center, which were not from they were from a recreation. There was some from a recreation reserve, but most of it was from a future borrowing, and that has not taken place, and so there wasn't those dollars set aside.
My understanding was that $5 million was in a reserve fund currently for that.
That would be incorrect.
It's incorrect? Okay. And then I guess the question about the recreation, in the past, I've read and heard that the Performing Arts Center was described as infrastructure. So I was wondering, with this being infrastructure, is this a suitable alternate use for the funding?
All right, so can you restate your question? I'm not sure we understand.
Performing Arts Center has been classified as infrastructure in the past, and since this is also infrastructure, can this be an alternate use of the funds assigned for the Performing Arts Center?
The funds for the Performing Arts Center were going to be coming from a borrowing bylaw, and so that borrowing bylaw did not take place. And so then this is also a borrowing bylaw that will look for funds for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else either have any questions or wish to object? Anyone else wishing to object or have any questions? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion for first reading.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of outlining the project, it's an expansion of our water supply system. It will include new water supply wells, raw water sewage treatment, iron removal, treated water storage and pumping and such. And so this is obviously, as the city continues to grow, we need to make sure that we have an adequate water supply. This is something that's obviously basic infrastructure, something that is essential to make sure that we have adequate water for our city. The project size is quite large, and it's even larger than the lagoon project that we did a number of years ago. The estimates are that the city would need to borrow about half of the cost. The other half is expected to be covered by grants from other levels of government, and so hence the Steinbach taxpayers are on the hook for only half of the total cost. It should be noted, because I know that one of the letters raises the objection in terms of the concern about taxes. I share the concern. I just want to point out that for legal purposes, when we send out a notice like this, we have to outline, as we should, frankly, what the total cost is, what we're borrowing, how many years we're borrowing it over, what the interest rate could be at a maximum level, and what the impact would be on the tax rate if you just take this project in isolation. As with other projects, we take this into consideration in our budgeting process. So yes, it says that this requires a mill rate levy of 1.41 mils. But I just want to make it clear that does not mean taxes are going up by 1.41 mils. It simply means that taken in isolation, that's what the impact would be. But as we do with our budgeting process, and what I certainly will be advocating, is that we make sure in our budget that we compensate by looking at our overall plan and making sure this is not resulting in a tax increase for people. And so that's how we seek to do our planning. So these are legitimate questions. I understand them. Just in terms of the question about the recreation and the Performing Arts Center, just to point out that the recreation reserve is by definition completely separate. The amount in that reserve is actually $750,000. So in terms of its, the mayor pointed out, it's not $5 million. But so this is an important project. It's basic infrastructure, and it does not mean the taxes are going up to do it, because we will make sure in the budgeting process that we take this into consideration as part of this.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Siemens?
Repeat, I can't repeat what you said.
All right. Anything further from Council? Councillor Penner, please.
Yes, I would just like to concur with Councillor Swagstra as well, that because we're borrowing this amount does not mean that the taxes will reflect an increase, but rather that when we do the budgeting process, we will take into account all of the revenues and expenses of the city, and therefore try and make it affordable for every citizen in the city.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anything in closing? Council, this is an important project. This is a secondary water project that will allow us to continue to expand our city and grow. It will also improve water quality in certain parts of the city, and I think that's also important. We see clearly that we're hoping for additional funds from other levels of government. We have had some reports of some provincial and federal funding already coming through the first phase of the Building Canada wastewater treatment wastewater fund. That's a positive. We continue to wait for further dollars coming through before we can proceed, but we will have this borrowing bylaw in place, and we'll be able to proceed quickly if and when those dollars come about. So in that way, I'm in favor of it, and it's a good project, and it's an appropriate way to move forward. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Can I have a motion for second reading, please? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Fair. Any further discussion?
No further discussion.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are now moving to 8A, reports and recommendations from City Manager. Mr. Warkentine, is there anything further today?
Just the administrative penalty bylaw is listed in administration.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move to 9A, accounts payable in the back of the book. You've all had a chance to review those. Can I have a motion to accept those, please? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We'll move to 9B. That's the bylaw 2076, administrative penalty. This is in regards to third reading on page 20. Mr. Warkentine, go ahead.
This particular bylaw was presented to council not that long ago for second reading. This will permit a shift or an update in how the city of Steinbach administers its parking tickets and their enforcement. And we are recommending that council give this bylaw third reading.
Thank you. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner?
Third reading.
Third reading, seconded by Councillor Fair. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, it seems that we've spoken about this a few times, but to reiterate, what it will do is give our administration a more streamlined method to deal with bylaw infractions, and in a way that will be more cost effective. We're looking forward to using this new process, as we've certainly had some frustrations in the past with enforcing our bylaws, so I look forward to the enactment of the bylaw.
Very good, thank you. Further discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Any questions of council? Councillor Siemens.
Through you to administration.
Go ahead.
One of the most asked questions I've had in the last couple of weeks, and from mostly seniors in our community, is when are the lines going to be painted on the highways? Can you answer that question?
All right. Mr. Workington, I think the question is highways and streets, because some are depending on who's in charge, right? Go ahead, Councillor, Mr. Workington, please.
That is correct. The provincial trunk highways are normally completed by Manitoba Infrastructure. I am not certain what schedule they have. I do expect that to happen sometime during July. As far as city streets, that line painting as far as the crosswalks and those particular areas has already started as of last week. And I expect the lines on the rest of the streets should be completed within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any further questions of council? Seeing none, we will now move to correspondence. 11A, we have the correspondence from the Epp Library June 21st meeting on page 32. Any questions? Take that as information. All right, there's no other business. And just before we adjourn, council, just don't want to say thank you to all of you for taking the time, your entire day, to go over some strategies as a council and where we want to head. We did have our study session today, and we did cover off quite a lot of information. We certainly did review our 2018 capital plan and the budget that is coming down, and obviously there's a few highlights in there, and that includes some upgrades to the aquatic center, working on the secondary water supply, which we talked about here today, as well pavement improvements along Hespeler. So that certainly was just some of the highlights from the potential budget for 2018. But we did also talk about the Performing Arts Center, and we do know that we've reached that deadline of June 30th that we set as a council back in December. And so I just did want to review briefly with you. I'm not going to go through all the iterations of where we've been, but we have had quite a number of discussions about this. And so just to start, on March 2016, we had the Task Force on Public Engagement for Recreation and Cultural Facilities. That report was given to us. In April 2016, there was a new council resolution and direction to begin development process for the Performing Arts Center. And in summer 2016, the city also engaged Stantec to prepare Class C design, cost, and estimates for the Performing Arts Center. In that summer, we also continued to acquire land for the downtown facility for the Performing Arts Center construction. In October 2016, we also had a preliminary presentation of plans and cost estimates to key stakeholders and potential fundraisers. In November 2016, we presented the Class C estimates and the design to council, and that was a report done. In December of 2016, the presentation of the design was given to the key stakeholders and potential funders. And also in December, we had the resolution indicating that we'll put a new deadline of June 30th, 2017 for the project to receive all of its funding. Well, we know that we hit June 30th and we did not receive all the funding. And so the project will not move forward in its present form. We as council will begin consultations over the next few months to determine future recreation and cultural plans, however. Council is continuing its commitment to set aside over $1 million in a recreation and cultural reserve for future projects. And so I want to say thank you to council for your hard work on this, and we'll continue to work for the betterment of Steinbach. Call for a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Fair. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.